In the spring of the year 536, the sun went out. Not for an afternoon. Not for a day. For 18 months, across an entire hemisphere, the sun rose every morning as a pale, cold disk, bright enough to see by, but too weak to cast a sharp shadow at noon. A Byzantine bureaucrat named Procopius, sitting in Constantinople, wrote it down: the sun gave its light without brightness, like the moon, for the whole year. He thought he was witnessing the end of the world. He was not entirely wrong. The first reports came from the Mediterranean. By April 536, the sky over Italy had taken on a strange, dry haze. It did not smell of smoke. It did not move with the wind. It simply sat there, week after week, dimming the sun. Cassiodorus, a Roman senator serving the new Gothic kings, wrote angry letters to his governors demanding to know why the harvest looked like it was dying in May. He blamed it on bad administration. He had no idea what he was actually seeing. Within months, the same haze was reported in Ireland, in China, in Mesopotamia. Tree ring data we have today, from Irish bog oaks, from Scandinavian pines, from California bristlecones, all show the same thing. In the year 536, trees across the northern hemisphere effectively stopped growing. Some of them produced rings so thin they are almost invisible. A few simply skipped the year. For a tree, that is the equivalent of a coma. Snow fell in southern China in August. Frosts hit the Mediterranean in July. The Annals of Ulster, written by Irish monks who had no contact with Constantinople and no reason to lie, recorded a failure of bread from the year 536 to the year 539. 3 years without harvest. In a world that lived one bad season away from starvation, this was not a difficult year. This was the end of normal. Here is the first strange thing: nobody at the time knew why. There was no fireball, no earthquake felt across continents, no obvious enemy to blame. The sky just dimmed, and stayed dim. Imagine waking up tomorrow and the sun is the wrong color, and your government tells you they have no explanation, and your priest tells you it is a sign, and your grandfather, who has seen 70 summers, tells you he has never seen anything like this in his life. The cause was buried, literally, under thousands of years of ice. In 2018, a team led by Michael McCormick at Harvard finished analyzing an ice core drilled from a Swiss glacier. Layer by layer, year by year, they read the planet's atmospheric record like a calendar. And in the layer corresponding to early 536, they found it, a massive spike of volcanic glass, almost certainly from a colossal eruption in Iceland. Not just one eruption. The ice shows a second one in 540, and a third in 547. 3 planet cooling blasts inside 11 years. The atmosphere never got a chance to clean itself. The cold killed the food first. Across the empire, summer crops failed because there was no summer. Wheat that needed warm nights to fill out the grain produced empty husks. Olive trees, which can survive most things, dropped their fruit unripe. The vines did not bloom. By 538, Procopius is describing famine in northern Italy on a scale that he, a man who had seen war up close, could not bring himself to describe in detail. Then came the second blow. In the summer of 541, a ship from Egypt docked at the port of Pelusium carrying grain and rats. The rats carried fleas. The fleas carried Yersinia pestis. This was the plague of Justinian, the first historically documented outbreak of bubonic plague, and it landed on a population already half-starved, already weakened, already living closer to death than they had been in centuries. The timing was not a coincidence. Cold-stressed grain stores attract more rodents. Hungry, malnourished bodies fight off infection worse. The volcanoes did not cause the plague, but they prepared the ground for it. Within 4 years, the plague had reached Constantinople. Procopius, who survived it, says that at its peak, 10,000 people were dying in the city every day. The bodies could not be buried. They were stacked in the towers of the city walls until the towers were full, then dumped into ships and pushed out to sea. Across the Mediterranean world, modern estimates suggest that between a quarter and half of the entire population died in the first wave alone. The Roman Empire, what was left of it, was hollowed out from the inside. The recovery took 200 years. Here is what we know, and here is what we do not know. We know the volcanoes erupted. We know the sky dimmed. We know the harvests failed and the plague came. We know, from Greenland ice cores, that the lead pollution signal from Roman silver mining, which had been climbing for 5 centuries, collapses in the year 536 and stays collapsed for the next 150 years. The economy did not just dip. It crashed. We can see the crash frozen in the ice. What we do not know, what nobody knows, is what it was like to live through it. There are almost no personal accounts. The people who survived were too busy surviving to write. The decade after 536 has a name now. Climate scientists call it the Late Antique Little Ice Age. It lasted, by some measures, until the year 660, over a century of colder summers, weaker monsoons, failing harvests, and population collapse from Ireland to China. Tang Dynasty records describe yellow snow. Mayan agriculture in the Yucatan went into a long decline. Steppe nomads, pushed off failing grasslands, drove westward into Europe and helped tip what was left of the Western Roman world into what historians once called the Dark Ages, a name that, it turns out, was more literally accurate than anyone meant it to be. Here is the part that gets me. For 1500 years, the year 536 was not a famous year. It was a small footnote in a few obscure chronicles. The plague got more attention. The fall of Rome got more attention. The rise of Islam, which happened in the next century partly because the great empires were so weakened, that got more attention. The actual trigger event was almost completely forgotten, because the people best positioned to remember it were the ones who died first. It took a glacier in Switzerland and a tree in California to put the story back together. In 2018, Michael McCormick gave an interview to Science magazine. He was asked, plainly, what was the worst year in human history to be alive? He did not say 1349, the year of the Black Death. He did not say 1918, the year of the Spanish flu. He did not say 1944. He said 536. Then he said it was followed by 537. Then he said it was followed by 538. The historian was trying to make a point. There are years when something terrible happens and then it is over. And then there are years when something terrible happens and you realize, slowly, that nothing is going to be over for a very long time. The sun came back, eventually. The harvests returned, eventually. The plague burned itself out, then came back, then burned itself out again. It kept doing that until the year 750. Whole languages went extinct. Whole peoples were absorbed into other peoples. The map of the world we live on now was, in a real sense, drawn by a volcano nobody saw erupt, in a place we still are not entirely sure of, in a year almost nobody remembered until 10 years ago. That is the story of the year the sun went out. If history that leaves you with better questions than answers is the reason you are still on YouTube, subscribe to Chamedia. New story every week.